My name's Dylan Campbell, this is Chasing Cars, and in today's video we have a comparison of efficiency kings, two cars with economy to rival surely Formula One. Over my left shoulder we have the Toyota Corolla Sedan Hybrid, the current efficiency king, and over my right shoulder we have the challenger, the new Hyundai i30 Sedan Hybrid. At $33,000 before on-road costs, the new base i30 Sedan Hybrid claims economy as low as 2.8 litres per 100 kilometres, which is incredible. In today's comparison test, we'll jump into the front seat, show you around, jump in the back seat, check out the boots, and of course do the all-important road test to help answer the question, can this new i30 Sedan Hybrid topple the mighty, miserly Corolla Hybrid? All that and more in today's video, but before we get started, hit subscribe.
Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by
Budget Direct.
Today's comparison test is all about the nitty-gritty of efficiency, but we do have two very different grades here. We've got the base model $33,000 before on-road cost i30 Sedan Hybrid, and then we have the top spec grade ZR Corolla Sedan Hybrid. Now, Hyundai is going to bring the mid-spec Elite and top spec premium i30 Sedan Hybrid models to Australia shortly. And to give you an idea about price, even though the grades we're testing today aren't like for like, the Corolla still scores an early lead. The base Corolla Sedan Hybrid can be purchased for $32,320 before on-road costs, whereas the cheapest i30 sedan is the $33,000 entry-level model we have today. The top-spec Corolla Sedan Hybrid will likely also be cheaper. Hyundai is bringing mid-spec Elite and top-spec premium grades to the i30 Sedan Hybrid range. We don't know pricing yet, but comparing base models, the hybrid powertrain is $4,000 extra. It's shaping up that the i30 Sedan Hybrid Premium will be a couple of grand more than the top spec Corolla Sedan Hybrid ZR we have here today. Okay, jumping into the front seat of the i30 Sedan, first impressions are good. It's an interesting cockpit inspired interior. We've got this big sort of pillar here, and it's obvious that it's a base grade. We've got the cloth seats that are manual. We've got a fully manual key, like it's 1995. Very high car-ish. But then we've got some standard equipment that's kind of curious, and it is a bit of a treat. We've got dual zone climate control. We've got a wireless phone charger, leather appointed steering wheel, but then we have the smaller 8-inch infotainment display with wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and then the smaller semi-digital instrument cluster here with just that 4.2-inch display. So lots of base model vibes going on in this particular i30, but on the whole, it's a nice place to be. Okay, jumping into the Corolla's front seat now, the first thing you notice is that it's a much more open designer dashboard. Down here is a lot more open compared to the cockpit style design of the i30 sedan. And it kind of reminds me of front-wheel drive cars from the 1980s, which were just sort of open down here where you had your manual gear shift and stuff like that. But as spacious as it feels in here, and it's really comfortable, it feels rock solid for build quality, you do notice that it's a slightly narrower cabin. And in fact, it is 45 millimeters narrower, this car versus the i30 sedan. And spec for spec, all models of the Corolla Hybrid get this 8-inch central touchscreen here, which does look a little bit dinky, but it's exactly the same as the i30 sedan. And the base Corolla Hybrid also gets the manual seats. It doesn't get a wireless phone charger, but it does have built-in satellite navigation. So sort of some pros and cons going on for standard equipment between the two cars. Moving into the back seats now and starting with the Hyundai. It's spoiler alert, I'm afraid. The Hyundai has the better back seat if you ask me. The first thing you notice is the back doors open nice and wide, wider than that of the Toyota, making it easier to get in and out. And unlike the Toyota, this base grade i30 sedan has air vents back here. It also has two USB-C chargers, has a center armrest. We've got these cloth seats, and it is pretty Spartan back here in terms of trim, hard scratchy plastics. But you also notice the 20 millimeter longer wheelbase of the i30 back here. There's plenty of foot room, plenty of knee room, and just an abundance of general space. Okay, jumping into the back of the Corolla sedan. If you're anything like me, you would have spent a fair bit of time in the back of one of these things, so it does feel oddly familiar. And much like the i30 sedan, there's a good amount of space back here. This is my driving position. I'm 174 centimeters tall, and there's a great amount of knee room, a good amount of foot room as well. Yeah, it's really comfortable. It does lose some points for having no rear air vents, which is really interesting for a top spec grade. We're just purely dependent on the front air vents in this car.
and it is a smaller cabin, so you can get away with it a little bit. We get a center armrest, and I have to say, headroom is a little bit tight. I wouldn't want to be wearing my thickest beanie because I don't know if it would fit. So that's a curiosity, and I'm not the tallest person, but on the whole, it does the job. All right, now let's have a look at the boots of these two cars. And the first thought is they're pretty big for the size of vehicle. We've got a 474 litre boot in the Hyundai's case, 470 litres in the Toyota. And even though the i30 does have a slightly larger boot, the ultimate win for me goes to the Toyota. That's because it just has a larger opening here. This lip is a little bit lower, and you can open the boot from the outside on this ZR grade. You can't do that in this base Hyundai. You have to get in there and pull a little lever up. Although the i30 does get some points for having these little tags here to fold down the seats. Both these cars having 60/40 split fold rear seats. Even though non-hybrid i30 sedans get a full-size spare wheel, this hybrid has a space saver, and it's the same case here in the Toyota. But ultimately, very impressive boots, given how big these cars are.
And now to the all-important real-world efficiency figures. On a 1-hour loop in suburban Melbourne with both cars in their eco modes, it was the Hyundai that came out on top with an average of 4.1 litres per 100 kilometres versus the Toyota's 4.3. On the highway, we tested both cars over 28 kilometres at 100 kilometres an hour. The Hyundai also came out on top with 4.2 litres per 100 kilometres versus the Toyota's 4.4. We're absolutely sure this isn't the end of the story with economy of either of these cars. You could expect to see as low as 3.7 litres per 100 kilometres with the Hyundai on an extended highway drive, which is incredibly frugal. Comparing servicing costs, the Corolla is much cheaper, $1,225 over 5 years. The Hyundai is $2,150. Both cars come with a 5-year unlimited kilometre factory warranty, but where the Hyundai covers the hybrid battery for 8 years, Toyota extends that to 10, provided you get annual battery health checks.
One of the first things you notice getting into the i30 sedan hybrid is it has a manual key, which you insert into the ignition barrel, turn, but there's no starter motor. You just basically put it into drive and head off. It's very interesting. There's no dedicated EV mode in the i30 sedan hybrid, but it can motor a fair way in EV only mode all on its own. I think I went at least a kilometre or two just in EV only mode, pootling around a car park, which is pretty impressive. And luckily, this car is fitted as standard with an acoustic vehicle alerting system, a speaker in the front of the car to warn pedestrians that you're coming up behind them, even when you're in silent EV mode. I have to say, it's a very easy car to drive. The seats aren't the most comfortable, these kind of base model seats. They're a little bit flat and lack a little bit of support. I wouldn't want to sit in them for 12 hours, but on the whole, this is a really easy car to drive. You get a good amount of electric motor assistance from low in the revs. So even blasting away from a set of traffic lights, you've got that little electric motor helping you out with that instant torque. One thing that does drive me slightly mad about this car is it has a speed limit warning that defaults to on every time you get in the car. And you might say, don't exceed the speed limit. And that would be fine, except it detects the incorrect speed limit all the time and beeps at you thinking that you're exceeding it. You have to get in there and turn it off every single drive, and that is a little bit annoying. The handling of the i30 sedan is actually pretty good. It's quite fun, it sits really flat, and a lot of that has to do with the standard independent rear suspension. Other i30s, whether that's the hatch or the sedan, can come with a torsion beam rear end, but this car, despite being front drive, comes with an independent rear end, which is very nice. Of course, having a petrol engine and an electric motor means you've got that electric motor helping you out at lower speeds. Moving away from a set of traffic lights, you get that instant little hit of electric motor torque helping out that petrol engine. And it's just a really nice feeling that having that response there at all times. The engine is a little bit loud in this car, and you can certainly hear it kicking in and out. And you can feel it a little tiny bit as well. And I think that's got to do with the twin clutch automatic transmission. It is a 6-speed, and that's compared to the constantly variable transmission of the Corolla Hybrid. And it is interesting, sometimes you can feel it sort of kicking in when the car is not expecting it. It's certainly not the smoothest hybrid powertrain I've ever driven in that regard. It's not the fastest car in the world, but the handling's actually reasonably fun. It feels wide and planted, this car, and even though the grip levels aren't super high, The i30 sedan benefits from having an independent rear end in the hybrid spec. That's versus the sort of cheaper, simpler torsion beam of other i30 models. I have to say, I'm loving the chubby 16-inch wheels and tyres on this car. They definitely help the ride quality. But jumping into the Corolla, you notice that the i30 is a little bit on the firmer side by comparison. On the whole though, this is a really nice, pleasant, easy car to drive. The hybrid powertrain works really well. It's nice and quiet and smooth for the most part, and it'd be an easy car to drive every day. This is a pretty simple driving experience, even though you get eco, sport and smart modes. It's a very basic car to drive at the end of the day. That's kind of what you want. You just want something that's easy, and that's exactly what this car is. Yeah, you can hear the engine is quite loud as it kicks in. If you get stuck into that throttle, there isn't enough grunt there in the electric motor to power the car on its own, especially when your foot gets stuck into the gas. There's a little bit of road noise too, especially on coarser chip bitumen, but certainly nothing as sort of loud as the Corolla sedan. But yeah, I have to say I really enjoy driving this car. I like the steering, it's nice and direct. It feels planted, the ride quality is good enough, and I love that little hit of electric motor torque as you get into the throttle. It's a really good car to drive. Okay, jumping into the Toyota Corolla Hybrid sedan now. The first thing you notice almost straight away is it's a fair bit louder for tyre noise. There's a surprising amount of tyre noise coming into this car, even for the top spec ZR that this is. The engine is also noticeably louder when you get stuck into the throttle. So it does lose a few marks compared to the i30 sedan for refinement in that regard. I can even feel the engine coming into the car. So yeah, not a patch on the i30 Sedan Hybrid for refinement in that sense. But if there's one thing I do prefer about the Corolla Hybrid, it's that it's a bit more softly sprung than the Hyundai, meaning that the ride quality is much nicer and much more plush. Sort of kind of floats down the road in a lovely way, and this is just a very comfortable car from a ride quality perspective. It also feels somehow more agile and a little bit more alive and alert when it comes to the handling. This is a car that you'd almost enjoy sort of pitching into a roundabout than you would the Hyundai. And even though the engine is quite loud, there's no doubting when it's kicking in. It does kick in a lot more of a seamless, smoother way compared to the Hyundai, and I think that has a lot to do with a constantly variable transmission. It just sort of is matching that electric motor and the petrol engine to the wheel speed absolutely perfectly every single time. And that just makes for ultimately a slightly smoother car. Much like the i30 Sedan Hybrid, the Corolla Hybrid benefits from that lovely electric motor torque that's sort of instant. When you get back into the throttle, you can sort of feel that it's really responsive, and I absolutely love that about hybrid powertrains and electric vehicles, and this car absolutely has it. Just makes it that much nicer to drive in traffic, getting around car parks and stuff like that. Nothing can match the response of an electric motor. So on the whole, this is a very pleasant car to drive with a surprisingly lovely ride quality and a nice agility about it. If you're a keen driver, you might find yourself on a winding road and be surprised at how much fun you're having in the Corolla Sedan Hybrid. But I am surprised at how noisy the engine is and how much tyre noise gets into the cabin compared to the Hyundai. Much like the Hyundai, this Corolla Sedan has independent rear suspension, which improves the ride quality just that little bit extra compared to a torsion beam, and same for the handling. But yeah, this is actually a surprisingly fun car to drive, and I love the thin rim steering wheel compared to that of the Hyundai. Where Toyotas like this used to feel like you were driving a fridge, it's not too far-fetched to say that there's a little bit of Toyota GR86 DNA even in this car, which makes it quite fun to drive. Unlike the Hyundai, this car also comes with a dedicated EV mode. So you can press it, drive around a car park, and the Corolla Hybrid will use only the electric motor until the battery is depleted basically, which is pretty cool. So when it comes to the purely subjective world of which car do you prefer to drive more, for me, I think it's this, the Corolla Sedan Hybrid. I just love the slightly softer ride quality. It feels that a little bit more alert, eager to go around corners in a way that the Hyundai kind of is not. I think I would just enjoy driving this that little bit more every single day. So there you have it, a comparison test of two very efficient vehicles, the Hyundai i30 Sedan Hybrid, the new kid on the block, and the Toyota Corolla Sedan, the existing champion of efficiency here today. The Hyundai i30 Sedan Hybrid is a very impressive vehicle, and even though both cars were pretty level pegged for economy on today's test, there is reason to believe that over time, the i30 would be the more efficient of these two cars, with economy as low as 3.7 litres per 100 kilometres. But I have to say, the winner of today's test is the Toyota Corolla Hybrid. I just personally prefer how it drives. I like the softer suspension, it rides better, it feels more alert and agile in the corners, and the constantly variable transmission just works a little bit better with that hybrid system. It's also a lot cheaper to service compared to the i30 Sedan, somewhat eking away at those economy gains. The i30 Sedan has the better back seat, and even though both cars have really large boots, that win goes to the Corolla a little bit. The Corolla also has the slightly better battery warranty. So there you have it, a very impressive new challenger in the Hyundai i30 Sedan Hybrid, and you can't really go too wrong with either of these cars if it's efficiency you're looking for. But for me personally, I think I just enjoy driving the Corolla just that little bit more each day, particularly if I was a rideshare driver. So they're my opinions. Let us know yours down in the comments below. And while you're there, hit subscribe and that notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.